You are listening to the Two and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
Well, how are you not ready for kickoff after halftime?
You only had 15 minutes. So yeah, you know what?
Grab some poutine and a double-double. It's time for the Two and Out CFL podcast.
Now they have to kick it out, and they do!
Every week, Travis Currah.
Does anybody still care about this podcast?
And Brazilian Ty.
Punters are people too.
Talk fantasy football, bring you the latest in CFL news, and sprinkle in a little bit of nonsense.
Are you kidding? This is unbelievable!
Ready, set, hunt!
And we are a part of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community supported. I'm Travis Currah, Brazilian Ty joining me, and I wanted to run this by you, Ty. I don't know if you saw this. Earlier this week, Arby's revealing that they're coming out with 2 flavors of vodka. One, the crinkle cut fry vodka, and the other...
So just regular vodka, because that's just potatoes.
And the other one, the curly fry vodka. It is actually supposed to taste like them.
I don't trust it.
What do you mix that with?
Ketchup? If you're a psychopath?
Arby's sauce?
Oh, now we're talking.
Oh, man. I don't know. I can't wrap my head around it. I've been trying.
Vodka doesn't treat me very well, so I won't be going anywhere near it. But
okay, good call.
I mean, the curly fries don't sound terrible. But like, how is the crinkle cut flavor vodka any different from just vodka?
I don't know. Maybe it's just salted. I don't know.
The old Irish dilemma.
If you've got a cold draft in your place, now's probably the time to fix it, as Ty experienced on a 14-hour drive today. Winter is here. I don't care what the calendar says. It's basically here.
Can confirm.
So if you want to fix that, Roomy's Ask a Home Inspector service can help. Connect with a certified professional home inspector by phone or video call and get your questions answered. Roomy will let you know what's easily fixable with a little DIY or when you might need to call in some professional help. Visit roomy.ca, that's RUMI.ca, and book your Ask a Home Inspector appointment today. All right, Ty, Friday night doubleheader, and these 2 games, of course, had big playoff implications here. The Argos stomping the Tiger Cats 31-12, just like we all thought. The Ticats were playing some of their best football going into this game, but were they? No, that is the question here. Don Jackson ended up having to miss the game.
Were they playing good football against mediocre teams, or were they playing just average?
That is the question. Don Jackson didn't play. I guess he had a bit of a knee issue, and that kind of translated into absolutely no offense from the Ticats. And to your point, over the past few weeks, Jeremiah Mazzoli and the Ticats offense looked dynamite. But then upon closer inspection on the season, the Ticats are 3-6 against teams in the playoffs. They're struggling against teams in the playoffs, and this Friday night in Toronto really exposed that.
Yeah, I mean, Don Jackson, not exactly a name at the start of the year we thought would be such a catalyst this late in the season, I don't think. I mean...
Right, yeah.
Kind of under the radar, a little forgotten in Hamilton. The last couple of weeks, the offense kind of ran through them. And, this week they just couldn't make the adjustment. Masoli didn't play all that well. Some bad drops. And just, if you can't beat the playoff teams in the regular season, I don't know how you beat them in the playoffs. It's gonna be tough for them, because I mean, you had to bust out you got to show your hand here in the regular season to win these games, and especially in the playoffs, you're playing a team that you've already played at least twice, maybe 3 times. So I don't know how you come up with a lot of new stuff. Like it was not a good look for Hamilton on Friday night.
Well, and if he couldn't get up for this game, what game are you going to get up for? This was the most important game of the season. And their performance at BMO Field was not good. And that's the question here now. It doesn't seem like an ideal time to swap out your quarterbacks, but it's legit. Is it Dane Evans' time? And I think it might be.
If you do it, you have to do it before the East semi. You have to do it next week.
Yeah,
he's got to get
agree.
time. He's got to get reps. You can't go with Masoli again, and then if he doesn't play up to snuff, start Dane in that playoff game. That's not fair to Dane or the rest of that offense. He's going to come in with limited practice time. The timing is, Masoli's kind of got a little bit of chemistry back with some of the guys, but, if you're going to make a change, you got to make it now because you can't go in on, 6-7 days worth of practice time. You got to give him all the time he needs or all the time you can give him.
Yeah. Mazzoli was missing open receivers. He went 22 of 40 for 326 yards, 2 interceptions. It kind of looked like the only guy that showed up on the Hamilton offense was Tim White. That guy's making plays, and he had 110 yards receiving on 5 catches. And I know we can kind of say that the Ticats offense fell off without Don Jackson in there, but Sean Thomas Erlington was only given 8 carries. So
back to the same old.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like they don't trust him. I don't know.
Yeah. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. He's averaged just under 5 yards a carry, which isn't terrible. It puts you in second and medium, second and manageable, right? So I don't get it. I don't, because defenses are just able to pin their ears back and or even just send 4 because that they're throwing the football and you just outman the receiving core. So they're getting back to that one. They're getting back to that one-dimensional offense that we talked about the last 3 years with this team. And how many Grey Cups have they won? 0. And they refuse to make a change, except for the last 2 weeks. I don't get it.
The best news for Hamilton on Friday night was that the hometown Arkells will be playing halftime of the 108th Grey Cup, December 12th at Tim Hortons Field. Kind of a predictable choice, but I think a great choice.
Super predictable, but at the same time, it wasn't like it was the worst kept secret. I didn't see any leaks. It just made them. I think everybody kind of put 2 and 2 together. It made the most sense. Nobody's got to cross the border and all that stuff. People are going to bitch because you get an American Act. Well, now you don't have that, but now it's going to be the Canadian Act they didn't want. So people are still going to find something to complain about. But I don't think you'll hear any complaints from the host city about this choice.
Yeah, exactly. On that note, credit has to go to Toronto, clinching first place in the East Division. They're still undefeated at home. They've got the one more game that really means nothing Tuesday against Edmonton. And
I think you rest everybody.
Might as well. I mean, at times it's been ugly for Toronto, but they got 9 wins. So
why play your guys 3 days after you just clinched home field? And instead of giving them, I would just give them a bye week. Why not? Well. The undefeated home doesn't mean a thing. So,
so
get that out of the way before the East final.
And a great moment for that franchise. The new logo. It's the first time they've been first in the East Division by my count since 2007. So,
oh my God.
Good for the Argos. It did seem like they had a very spirited group at BMO Field, and when you go on the Ticketmaster map the night before, sometimes it almost looks like they're trying to make it so the Argos don't sell tickets. Like, they've got the social distancing pods set up. It looked like there were about 100 tickets left, but that's all you could buy on Ticketmaster.
Yeah.
That being said, they're starting the process to sell tickets for the East Final. Either way, it's going to be Hamilton or Montreal going to Toronto to the East Final, and now they can start to sell tickets. I hope they get a good crowd in the 6 for that game. Good for them for, clinching first in the East. But they kind of remind me of the Riders in a way, where they're just winning in these ugly ways, but they're winning. How can you dissect it?
Nobody ran away with that division, right? So
yeah.
It's almost like every team had their warts, and most weeks they showed. And I was prepared to come on here and say that McLeod Thompson isn't a starter, and I thought that Hamilton was going to just absolutely boat race them, pun intended. Against
I think
the
a lot of
Argos.
people did.
And then when that didn't happen, and a pick and a touchdown, 250 yards, 76.5%. He did what he had to do.
He did, yep.
Right, and this Hamilton team played like absolute garbage, so he didn't have to do much.
The run defense for Hamilton was good. DJ Foster had 18 carries for 47 yards. Like they just could not get the run game going against the Ticats defense. And then MBT did what he had to do. A beautiful move, a touchdown. Curly Gittens Jr., 7 catches, 72 yards. He might be the MOC coming out of the East Division. He's been a good find for the Argos.
I'm trying to think of another guy who's, in that, especially in that East Division. Like I don't think you can name any. But you can't put up Sean Thomas Arlington because they don't use him. Right, Montreal. I mean, I don't think anybody there comes close for MOC. And then Ottawa, I mean, I guess, I don't know.
Curly Gittens has been good.
Yeah, I think that might be, he probably is the front runner. You're right.
Man, that's really, he's got over 600 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns on the season. And I think at the beginning of the year, as far as Canadian receivers go, a lot of people were looking at Hergy Mayala in Calgary or Lamar Durant in BC, and between injuries and just not being able to take that next step, Curly Gittens Jr. has been the Canadian receiver that has been really producing for his team. But at this moment in time, Chris Jones and Rich Stubler, their defense is working. Henoch Mwamba had 11 tackles. You want to talk about Canadians, he is really leading that defense when he's able to be on the field for the Argos.
Yeah, when he's healthy, he is arguably, top 3?
Yeah.
When it comes to linebackers. So, I mean, he had 11 tackles. The next closest guy, Sean Oakman, had 4.
He was all over the place.
He's everywhere. It doesn't matter. He's ridiculous.
Well, and another shout out, I think, to Cordero Law. Last week, he ended up getting himself a Performer of the Week nod in the CFL. And this one, he had another sack, another 2 tackles. And, of course, your boy, Chris Edwards, ended this game with a 78-yard interception return for a touchdown. So
unbelievable.
Good for the Argos. I'm fascinated to see where the Ticats go from here, man. I have no idea where that one is going to go.
I think they go and lose the East semi and sit at home and watch Grey Cup.
Just like you have been hoping for all year.
Well, I wanted them to host the East Final and Toronto beat them in the East Final. That's what I really wanted.
The second half of the Friday night doubleheader, the Calgary Stampeders beating BC 33-23. They needed that game to clinch the playoff spot and send BC packing, and BC is packing right now. And that being said, Michael Riley is really it looked to me at times he's tried to, well, he has played with heart. He's been getting hit hard. He still gets up and trying to put the team on his back, but just when you don't have the running game, it makes it tough. And James Butler probably had his best game as a Lion here, though. And it kept the game close, I think, against the Stamps for much of the game. Right up until, the fourth quarter, James Butler had 11 carries for 89 yards. He also had 7 catches for 36 yards. Yeah, over 8 yards a carry. Probably should have given him the ball a little bit more. But Mike O'Reilly, over 80% completion. He had the touchdown, 340 yards. I don't know what else the guy could have done.
When you look at his stat line, you wouldn't think that his team lost by 10. Other than sacrificing his foot for a win, I don't know what else he could have done.
Yeah, the key stat is the touchdown column, because you look over at Bo.
Yeah, Bo
3 touchdowns. They were finishing the drives, and BC just wasn't doing it. And when Nicholas Vogel has to kick the 3 field goals to keep in it, that was the difference in the game. They finish a few of those drives, then they probably win this game and they live to fight another day. But that wasn't to be. I think the big story for the Stamps was the return of Reggie Begelton, who looked like he'd never been gone. It's like he never went anywhere. He had 7 catches, 119 yards. He had a touchdown. He had another carry for 21 yards. He was all over the place. He was the most expensive receiver, or one of them, on CFL Fantasy, and for good reason. He definitely produced, but ends up having to leave the game. I guess it's a neck injury there.
Oh, man, that's a concussion. Let's call it what it is.
Yeah, well, that's what Dave Dickinson said, and you can't really believe what the coaches say, but it looked like they were trying to see, do the old, the time watch back and forth, follow it. Hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
What's your name? Where are you?
His head bounced off the.
It did.
It was real bad.
Hopefully he's okay. I'm guessing they'll give him this week against Winnipeg off to have him ready for Saskatchewan in the West semifinal. But him and Bo, it's like they've never been apart, really.
And I mean, Bo, because where was Begelton, in Chicago?
Green Bay, I think.
Oh, because I was going to say, if he was in Chicago, Bo was better than any quarterback they've had on that roster in the last 5 years. And Bo was definitely better than Jordan Love.
Yeah, that's true. But with Begelton in there, he gives more room for Kamar Jordan to fly around, more room for Markeith Ambles to do his thing. Jordan ended up having 71 yards receiving himself, and Kadeem Carey had 15 carries for 85 yards and a touchdown. So it seemed like this is the performance that Stamps fans have been waiting to see from their offense, and maybe Begelton was just that missing piece. They put up 33 points, and they were finishing drives. That being like, BC controlled the ball, and they had the ball for over 30 minutes. I have to look at the drive chart here. There was a drive in this game
that was 8 minutes or 9 minutes.
Yeah, and That's an NFL drive. That doesn't really happen in the CFL. BC, here it is.
Not usually.
14 plays, 91 yards, 6:54 off the clock. Wow. That is a big one that ended with a Javon Katoy touchdown there.
Yeah, and if you have a drive like that, it has to end in a touchdown.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. And I think the whole team knew that going in, or when they were into the red zone, that if they were going to settle for a field goal, I think that Calgary probably just is gone. Like BC would be so deflated. Not that they weren't super deflated after a certain rookie took 2 terrible penalties on a punt return, but
ooh, and that was it in the fourth quarter, and that's why BC's not in the playoffs and Calgary is, because they don't make silly mistakes like that. Lucky Whitehead has an 85-yard touchdown return called back due to penalty. At that point, BC would have had a 29-26 lead. But when that return happens and it gets called back due to penalty, you kind of knew that, well, BC Place has something to do with penalties coming back or returns coming back.
Yeah. I mean, in 2014, that penalty was completely unnecessary.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we're all in agreement with this or with that. I'm not sure why you drag a guy down and think you're not going to get caught.
Yeah.
And the tourist hit, like, how many times does that have to be called before guys know they can't do it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's been in the blind side, tourist hit, whatever you want to call it, coming back towards your own end zone. Everybody knows, you know, it's just stupid. I feel for that kid because, I mean, I don't want to say that cost the BC Lions the game because, you know, they had other chances to score points and didn't.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the timing of that is just the worst possible timing.
So the BC Lions in 2019 go 5-13. They were 0-10
against the West.
Yeah, absolutely brutal. Now this year, 4-9, 1-7 against the West, and I believe the game they won was the one
they improved.
That the game they won was in Calgary when Bo was playing with a broken leg, wasn't it?
I think so. Yep.
So the hype of Riley going to BC, paying him all that money, and you have one win over a West team through 2 seasons.
And, you know, I don't blame Mike Riley for that, though. Like, I mean,
yeah,
your
that's
career's
true.
only so long. Take all the money you can when you can, but realize that all the money that you just got paid means you're gonna get lit up every week.
And maybe he's feeling the pressure as well, putting it all on his back, which I get. They only had 1 win at home this year. Can it be another offseason of changes? I've seen a lot of people kind of questioning Rick Campbell's coaching. I don't think you go into another season with another new coach.
No, and especially with the football ops cap.
Now that Dom Rhymes came in towards the end of the season, it looks like he finally started to produce, and the Lions had 3 legitimate receivers to throw to. Going into 2022,
I love Mike Riley, but the only way this team succeeds is without him.
Interesting point, man.
Right? You want to pay $750,000 for a quarterback that you can't keep upright?
Yeah.
Or do you want a quarterback, like, just for example, Nick Arbuckle, whatever, making half that money, and you can build an offensive line around him?
Yeah. Less than half. It's a lot of cash.
Like, it's that's the biggest issue, and you see it in the NHL too with teams. Like, look at the Leafs. In next year, they don't have money to pay anybody.
That's 2 like stud all-star offensive linemen that.
Yep.
I mean that the savings between an Arbuckle and a Riley, and I know Riley's more proven. I get that. But going into next year, I mean, what do the Lions do? This season, there was a lot of new faces on the defense. Basically, that entire defensive line was new to the CFL. Early in the season, they were performing well. They had interceptions from the secondary. I think next year you just need to have balance and to have a running game going. But
at the same time, it's hard to get a running game going when you can't pay off an offensive line.
That too, yeah.
How many times have we brought it up in the last 2 years with this team that, you know, or with almost who's the best example? Winnipeg.
Yep.
That offensive line, and, you know, they won a Grey Cup, and they've lost One game since. They're well on their way to winning another one because they have built a team with an O-line. And yeah, guys are taking less because they're winning. Like, that's the only way that's going to happen. And it's not going to happen. And Mike Riley's a great quarterback, don't get me wrong. But with the money he's making, it makes it really hard for a team to succeed.
Calgary did have another injury coming out of the game. That was defensive tackle Mike Rose. Who, if he's out for a bit, that's a significant loss for Calgary's defensive line. He's been dominant at times this season, so that'll be another player to watch.
He can get pressure by himself.
Yeah, he'll be a guy to watch going into the playoffs, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, I don't know if there's much to say about Winnipeg in this one, but Montreal beating the Bombers 28-14. It was Winnipeg's B team clearly. There was a point right at the beginning of the fourth quarter where Montreal's Eugene Lewis had 35 passing yards and Sean McGuire had 31.
Yeah, I had both of them in my lineup. Actually, I overheard on the PA system at Molson Percival Stadium say, Alouettes money line bettors, please proceed to pay window when that stat came up.
Are you serious? Can you bet on the game?
But that's how sure that they were. That's how sure I was at that point that Winnipeg wasn't going to do a damn thing.
I'm so gullible.
That word's not even in the dictionary.
It was the very next drive where I think McGuire tripled his passing total on 2 passes or something like that. But you just look at the time of possession in this one. Montreal, 39 minutes and 14 seconds.
Yeah. They just beat him up.
Yeah, they did. And I mean, it's not really
exactly what everybody
surprising.
expected.
Yeah. It's not that surprising. But 2 weeks in a row, Reggie White Jr. a touchdown, and he's $2,500 on CFL Fantasy. He's probably going to go up to 3,000, maybe a little bit more now.
Yeah.
But that Eugene Lewis, man,
and then they'll sit him.
It's almost like with the change at quarterback, they aren't looking as much to touchdown Jake, and Eugene Lewis has been stepping up here. 6 catches, 51 yards, 2 touchdowns. Welcome back to the CFL, Winston Rose. And I know he was tweeting I got to be better. But, man, when you're trying to cover that guy.
Good luck.
Yeah, Trevor Harris was only throwing it to where Lewis could get it on those touchdowns. And they were good plays.
That second touchdown was stupid.
Yeah. Harris, 18 of 25, 3 touchdowns, 144 yards. He can't be the Zach Collaros of 2019, can he? But at the same time, Montreal feels Montreal feels like the team in the East, especially as the weather gets colder and they've got that weapon called William Stanback. Maybe the team I want to avoid the most.
Yeah, I think so. Hamilton, I don't think they scare anybody right now. Their defensive line is good, sure, but everywhere else just weak. Toronto on paper, I mean, if everybody's healthy, yeah. But right now the Owls are clicking. Got one of the best backs in the league who runs at contact.
Yeah.
And when it's -10, -15, I don't see a lot of guys wanting to get in front of that. They will because they get paid to, but it's going to suck, and they're just going to be able to beat defensive down. Their defense is down. Their own defense has been playing phenomenal.
They've really come together in the last little while. Yeah.
Yeah, they've turned it on. The return game could use a little work, as we saw in the opening kickoff. But other than that, I mean, right now they're probably the team to beat in the East, and they're not hosting the East Final.
Well, and that's the way the game started, as a botched, kickoff return. 3 plays later, the Bombers are up 6-0. I think they had a missed extra point from Sergio Castillo. So everybody's saying, "Oh, great, here we go."
Yeah.
Being said,
Winnipeg fans couldn't have been that excited. It's like you don't really think.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't give Justin Medlock $20,000 to come back for 4 weeks or whatever.
Yeah, prorated.
Oh, but that being said, Winnipeg's return game was dreadful as well. Shaq Cooper,
Yeah.
you could see why BC let him go a little bit. It was an event, and I don't know if he's normally doing returns. Yeah.
Remember his first game in 2018?
With Edmonton.
I remember that because I was in Morden. I was in a basement in Amish country. But it was like, man, this kid could be the next big thing, and it's just kind of fizzled out.
Yeah, maybe he's not a returner per se, and he's better doing the back work. But man, it was just not good. Sean McGuire throwing 4 interceptions, goes 11 of 26, 149 yards. At the beginning of the year, I kind of thought that Winnipeg would be able to survive just with the way the system is, the offensive line, the running backs they have, the defense they have. If Zach Collaros goes down, now
Chris
I'm not so
ain't
sure.
Coming back.
Well, now I'm not so sure.
No, I think it's pretty obvious that they can't. And it's hard to say. I mean, McGuire had a week.
Yeah.
It's his first start. He doesn't have a lot of time with the ones, and maybe it's hard when you're trying to go back to back to get your backup looks. But other than the short yardage and the rushing touchdowns on the sneaks, but if Collaros gets hurt next week, I think everybody's going to be yelling that Mike O'Shea shouldn't have played him.
Well, do we know he's going to play?
If he doesn't play and they lose the West Final, everybody's going to be yelling that he should have played. So it's a no-win for O'Shea.
That's true. It'll be because if he doesn't play, that's basically 4 weeks of no game action until the West Final. So we'll see how that goes. The last game of the week, the Riders and the Elks. Like, what an adventure at Mosaic Stadium.
Like, I don't know.
Like, I brought it up with Toronto. Saskatchewan's got 4 wins in a row, 3 of them on the road.
But the way this team is winning games, I have zero faith in them.
Well, so a 29-24 win over Edmonton here. It doesn't look promising with Calgary coming to town in 2 weeks.
Nope.
Man.
I said it in our group chat that I really feel like this Rider season is kind of a sham. It's like when you're walking down the street and the guy's got those 3 cards and you got to find the ace, but you never win because it's a scam. Mm-hmm. Like, this is what Saskatchewan's winning games, but I mean, they're not. Like, I just don't see them as that being that good.
It's almost like
they're winning in spite of themselves.
Fajardo just kind of puts together this sort of defining drive in the fourth quarter. Yeah. And it's like the fourth quarter comes and he does what he needs to do. He wasn't bad in this one. There was an interception that had to come back on a pass interference that probably wasn't. Not probably, wasn't. at the end of the game. There was another interception thrown, but he had 3 touchdowns, 71.9% completion percentage. He had 22 rushing yards. I mean, he did what he had to do. And I mean, through the first half, Duke Williams, I think it was something like 115 yards receiving in the first half. The rest of the receiving core had 24. So it was all Duke Williams. And then he ends up getting hurt in the second half, and Rider Nation has a collective gasp.
Who's going to recover the onside kicks?
Well, exactly. And then 5 plays later, he's running out there like nothing happened. And I've heard a couple former players kind of bite their tongue on this because they're like, wait a sec, you put on that much of a show and then 5 minutes later you were good to go?
Hey, I've done that and then scored on the power play. It's not that bad.
Like, if my knee bent that way, I'd probably be on the 6-game injured list as well. So
yeah, that's fair.
I'm thinking they're probably going to not play him against Calgary, but Fajardo clearly had some nice chemistry with Duke Williams, and he's been the pickup of the season for them.
Yeah, he had 110 yards more than the second leading receiver for the Riders, who was William Powell.
Wow. Wow.
There is no way that Edmonton should have had a chance to win this game on their last drive.
Right.
If Saskatchewan's this good as everybody thinks they are, and sitting number 2 in the power rankings, bull crap, there is no way this game should have been what it was. And I just don't trust this team whatsoever.
Well, the Riders had, I see the game as opportunities. It was early in the game where the Saskatchewan went to punt and Edmonton had too many men. So the drive gets extended for 2 plays and then a punt anyway. Jamal Morrow,
like when you get gifted that, you have to capitalize.
Yeah. One of the Riders' strengths this year has been not losing fumbles. They lead the league in that department. They've only lost 3. But Jamal Morrow, back onto the roster, he ends up fumbling on a return. But the very next one, he had an 85-yard return, got thrown out of bounds. So they were able to capitalize on that one. So he redeemed himself a little bit there. Jalen Tolliver with the touchdown there. And speaking of Edmonton, we got to give them credit too. Because Tolliver had 2 touchdowns, 5 catches, 98 yards. Taylor Cornelius, 3 touchdown passes. He had the interception, but 20 for 30, 224 yards. They get rid of the quote-unquote stars, and they're just a better team. Like this Walter Fletcher, I think they found something in this running back. He had 88 yards rushing.
I don't think James Wilder Jr. was that big of a problem, other than the Twitter rants about vaccines and all that stuff. He wasn't the diva we thought he was going to be. He wasn't the problem.
Maybe
but when you have guys like he might be a bit of a problem. Who knows, right? But I mean, it wasn't like what we saw in Toronto.
Right. At least the reputation he earned himself.
The reputation definitely preceded him, and it just seemed like he was a different player, and he seemed like he was the only one who gave a crap. Right, and then but like you said, the star guys, Darrell Walker and Greg Allison did nothing all year. Like they're based I don't know what this team does. And the fact that Lozano comes out and says that Arbuckle is they're going to compete. Then why did you pay Arbuckle over $300,000 next year if he's got to compete for a starting spot?
Yeah, that seems like a kind of a dumb decision.
Right, so now we're just back into this mess of a front office that they have. Brock's obviously going to be back next year. Or else
if he's allowed to make trades and sign contracts,
right? Then I don't think, unless they're going to be like the other team in Edmonton and let the GM sign a goalie that wasn't ready to be a starter yet. I mean, it's kind of worked out this year, but I don't know what I don't know why they have to lose Darrell Walker and Greg Allison on the starting lineup to be better. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because even if they are in the lineup, you think that opens up things for everybody else. Right? And it just didn't seem to happen.
And one area Edmonton has really struggled with this season is forcing turnovers. It's almost been non-existent. And in this game, they recover the fumble, get the touchdown. They pick off Fajardo late in the third quarter, touchdown to Tolliver. So they really were taking advantage of those in this game. I guess we got to mention what happened coming out of halftime. So there's so many things in this that make me want to shake my head. Because
there's only one for me.
Well, how are you not ready for kickoff after halftime?
You only had 15 minutes.
So
So, yeah, you know what?
In the words of allegedly the head official, Tom Valesi, thank you, Brazilian Ty. This tweet from CFL Communications.
What a bunch of cowards.
Saying, earlier this evening, one of our officials used an expletive during the Riders-Elks game, and it was picked up by an open microphone. We wish to apologize to any and all who were offended. The referee responsible has asked us to personally express his deep regrets as well.
Ugh.
Well,
I wouldn't apologize for that.
I don't think the apology is for
actually
the
from
word
Tom Valesi.
itself. Well, it's not for the word itself. It's the way it was directed.
Well, if they're not ready, it's too bad.
Right. I don't know if I've ever seen that. Like a timeout before the second half kickoff.
I texted you and asked you, I'm like, who called that timeout? Because it didn't really matter which team. It wasn't going to be a surprise to me.
Yeah. There it is.
Like,
what a funny situation.
They'll have game with live mics, and they'll put out the disclaimer beforehand. They never apologize for anything.
Well, isn't it the funniest thing that they're not doing the mic'd up stuff anymore, but this is a better moment that had ever come out of all of that?
Hands down.
Yeah. And it was unintentional.
Yeah. I think that's the best part.
Yeah.
That's just like last year in the NHL when I can't remember which ref it was, but he basically got fired for telling his partner, well, I had to give him one. It was a makeup, basically admitting that they doctor games and do makeup calls. It's like, we already knew that. You didn't have to say it. But now that you said it, you're fired.
Yeah.
He was in his last year anyway, but the league had to save face. And it's like, man, like it was hilarious. Right? That word to us, it's not that funny. But to a 10-year-old that hears that, or to our 3-year-old or 2.5-year-old nephew that hears that.
Yeah.
But do you know how hard it is not to laugh at that when it comes from a 2-year-old? Like if he would have heard that, he would have repeated it instantly.
Absolutely.
And it would have been awesome. And I probably would have encouraged it.
Let's do some blind resumes here, Ty. I'm just going to read out some stats from 2 players.
Okay.
10 games played, 13 tackles, 3 sacks for one player.
Yeah.
The other player, 10 games played, 38 tackles, 10 sacks, 1 interception, 1 forced fumble.
That's Micah Johnson.
That's AC Leonard.
Oh, wow.
And the other one, Kwaku Boateng, who was a highly hyped player.
Highly touted.
Yes. Coming into this season. Mm-hmm. And I know he's Canadian, and he had 8 sacks in 2019, 9 in 2018. I mean, is the loss of Armando Sewell to Montreal really making that much of a difference for Edmonton's defensive line?
Man, we talk about it with Winnipeg. Jeffcoat and Jefferson, like they open up so much for other guys because you got to worry about them. But Armando Sewell in the middle as a defensive tackle to eat up a double team, because you almost have to double team him. It opens up for Kwaku. Not saying that he's a bad player.
No,
but I mean, it was way better opportunities with Sewell in the middle. I don't even think that's really up for debate, is it?
Well, to that point, isn't that Micah Johnson's value to Saskatchewan for Woodard and Leonard?
100%. And Micah Johnson can still get pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. Odell Willis sent out a tweet yesterday. Winnipeg bookends have 16 sacks. Saskatchewan's have 19, and AC Leonard has missed 3 games.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Not only do Winnipeg's have 16 sacks, that's without Drake Nevis.
Right. He's off to Toronto and hasn't really been on the field much.
We all thought was, one of the best. And he is one of the best D tackles in the league. But we thought, with him gone, Willie Jefferson's really, really good. But now it's a chance to double team him more frequently. And they didn't really seem to miss a beat on that defensive line. But for Saskatchewan to have 19 just from the ends is crazy.
I know that Winnipeg fans are going to attack Rider fans because of AC Leonard's run-in with the doping officials, kind of like Rider fans have attacked Winnipeg fans for Andrew Harris.
I was going to say marrying their cousin.
But AC Leonard has a career high in sacks in 7 less games. He's had a great year for the Riders, and we know he's not really going to get the recognition for it because of what happened in September. I think the Rider defensive player that's going to get the recognition is probably Lucas Purifoy.
Gators legend.
And the fact that he didn't play in the second half is concerning for the Rough Rider team.
Very much so.
They want him good to go against Calgary in the West semifinal. They can't afford to be without Purifoy.
No, and now that they have their ticket booked, I don't think we see a lot of guys play week 6.
Well, and that's a question. Has this Rider offense proven enough that they deserve to have the week off against Hamilton?
Can I swear again?
So they should play, is what you're saying.
100%. You did nothing to deserve a week off.
Yeah. This fourth quarter was all William Powell, though. Man, he had a touchdown called back on the holding call with 8 minutes left. And that was such a rough rough sequence for Edmonton because the touchdown gets called back with the holding call. And then it's 1st and 25 because the Riders took a procedure. Then Edmonton takes a pass interference.
What are you doing?
It came down right to the wire. One more thing I just want to say, a shout out to the 2 fullbacks in this one. The pride of Lacombe, Alberta, Tanner Green with a touchdown for the Elks. And then Alexander Dupuis for the Riders, a touchdown. It's good to see the fullbacks.
His first career touchdown.
Absolutely. You'll love to see that. Who were the fantasy leaders in Week 15, Ty?
Quarterback-wise, we have Bo at 22.6, Cody Fajardo at 22, Mike Riley at 20.7. I don't know how he completed passes from the ground, but he was able to. Taylor Cornelius at 20.1, so kind of not a total battle. Not very high scoring, but they were still pretty close between him and Fajardo. As for running backs, James Butler led the way at 23.2, Walter Fletcher at 18.6, Kadeem Carey at 16.5, and like you said, they didn't really start. The Riders didn't start using Powell till the fourth quarter, so we come away with 12.5. So it wasn't crazy, but Duke had 28.6, Reggie Bagleton 27. Jalen Tolliver, 26.8. Eugene Lewis, 23.1. Curly Gittins Jr., 20.2. Just unreal performances from 5. I guess they're not number ones, but 5 receivers from 5 different teams. And then Coutoy and Dominic Grimes in 6th and 7th spot. But the ball didn't get spread out too much, it seems.
I had a loss to Joe Pritchard in the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
You didn't start Sean McGuire, though.
So. I didn't. I started Jeremiah Mazzoli, which is worse.
Probably worse.
The fact that I paid him $11,000 for that output is... but we've all built up to this. My record on the season is 6-9.
Nice.
Week 16 in the CFL season starts on Tuesday. The Elks and the Argos. I think we can all agree this is going to be the best game of the season.
Who are they starting? Toronto has to start Pipkin, no?
That's a good question.
I don't think we see a lot of guys play that game for Toronto.
So obviously for fantasy, you get the Elks players twice. I don't know who's going to play both of these games, but
probably maybe not worth it unless it's Walter Fletcher.
I was going to say Walter Fletcher costs $6,000, and if you get a game and a half or even one game out of him, I think that's not too bad.
Put him in your lineup now before the price changes.
Yeah, I did that as we were recording.
Nice. Also, before you run away, I just won $723.53.
From hockey or what?
Yeah.
Nice. And you won $300 on the Owls.
$325.
Nailed it.
Hey, puck line Jesus.
We are a part of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community supported. You can go to albertapodcastnetwork.com, check out all the great shows in the network, including the Second Floor Podcast. You can check them at secondfloorpodcast.com. And that's not SECOND, that's 2NDfloorpodcast.com, where Omid and Kenny discuss how to survive, thrive, and keep good vibes flowing in life, health, and business. That's the Second Floor Podcast, a part of the Alberta Podcast Network. Ty and myself, Travis Currah, will be back on Thursday to talk about Week 16, the final week of the 2021 regular season before the Grey Cup playoffs. Rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcatcher. We'll talk to you then.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.